Hi, I'm Candy Huang and I will be giving you a video tutorial on how to make pools using Blackboard Learn 9. So why do we want to use pools? Well, pools basically give us a way of making tests and quizzes, but several different versions. And how that works is a pool is basically sets of questions that live on Blackboard Learn 9. The reason why they're useful is because when we make these sets of questions, we can just alter them slightly so that you can have Blackboard select one type of these questions from a pool. Okay, Blackboard also can randomize not only the kind of question within this pool, but also the order the questions are presented overall or even within the pool itself. So based on all of these different permutations, you can have lots of different versions, but the same level of difficulty. And also, once you make a pool, it's really easy to make other pools by just using a copy function and changing the text and answers. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is just show you what a completed test pool looks like so you know what to look forward to. So this example that I'm showing you is a quiz that has been made using pools. And so you can allot as many questions as you want, and for however many points, that's totally up to you. What is great about pools is, remember, those are just sets of questions. And so you can have a set of questions where the questions are very similar, but they ask different components of the same concept, or they ask for a product and you want to give them a reactant. That's a chemistry example. You can change the answers or, change the question type, but the difficulty level remains the same. And so with this pool, it's going to select a randomly from this pool. So I've opted to select one of two of these questions. And normally with a quiz that you make, when you just select one out of two, that's fine. But with Blackboard not only selecting one out of two sets of questions, it can also randomize those questions. It can randomize what's selected. So therefore, the number of versions that are made for your quiz or test vary exponentially. So this is the utility of that. And you can also assign points per question and etc. And you can also see your pools, and it will only pull one or however many questions you opt for. But we'll get to this part towards the end of this tutorial video. So let's get started on step-by-step how to make pools. So now that you've seen a test using pools, what we're going to do is we're going to step-by-step I'm going to step-by-step help you make your own quiz or test. So we're going to do an example of how to make a pool. We'll just do one, but you can make as many pools as you need based on what you'd like to do for your test or quiz. Then once you have all of your pools in hand, then you can make a test canvas to incorporate these pools, and I'll show you how to do that. And then lastly, you want to edit the test options for your quiz or test needs. So this is where you put the deadline for the test or quiz, how long students can have to complete it, if you want to randomize question ordering, etc., etc. So all those components we will go over right now. Okay, step one, how to make your pool. So how did I get here? Well, I went to my course site and then I went down from course tools. If you click course tools, then if you go down, you can see test surveys and pools. You want to click that, and then it'll bring you to a place where you're going to make tests, surveys, and pools. So we're eventually going to make a test, that's step 3, but the first thing we want to do is make pools so that we can make our test or quiz. Okay, so I click on pools, and then you can either import pools if you've used this for a different class, or you can build a pool from scratch. So we're going to do that. All right, so building a pool, and usually we build pools for labs, for lab quizzes, or for course exams. So I'm going to designate that this is for lab, and I'm going to call it lab quiz number 1. Okay, so making that designation helps because if you're in the same combined course with your lab instructors or recitation instructors, everything ends up in the same place. So you want to make sure that you designate what part of the course your quiz is for, or your pool is for. So I like to put lab in front. Okay, and this, you should probably do this as well. Okay, you can include a description or instructions, or you can do that later. You don't need to do that quite at this moment. So we press submit. Okay, and so now we're going to create questions. So as I said earlier, once you make a pool, it's easier to just copy and paste rather than making them from scratch. But for the first pool, we have to make it from scratch. And so it would really help if um, you had some questions already in mind that you want to write up, and that way you can just type them out or copy and paste from Word to your question. So my question will be, what day is it, right? So, and then you can do numbering, ABC, 1, 2, 3, or none at all. It really doesn't matter. You can do orientation. You can show answers in random order. This is another way that different versions can be created from just having two separate questions within a pool. By having answers in a random order, they're different for every student. So they may have the same set of answers, but they're shown differently. So that also helps with randomization. So I'm going to write Monday, Tuesday. This is also the same as making a test. The only difference is a pool is just sets. Thursday. And I'm pretty sure that today is Monday, so I'm going to keep that the correct answer. And then I'm going to submit. Okay, so that is an example of a question. An example of a similar difficulty question within the same topic would be like, what day was it yesterday, right? It's the same level of difficulty, it's the same topic. So that way you know that you are asking a similar level of difficulty, similar level of topic for the student. So even if students get different versions, you know that it's overall comprehensively fair. So a great way, once you have written a question, is just to copy. Copying is really easy because it'll copy all components of the question. So you don't have to, all you have to do is delete this copy of and that extra space. Okay, so I did that. So, and then change the question. What day was it yesterday, right? And so now I have to switch it up and put in a new answer choice. So yesterday was Sunday, okay? And so then I submit. Okay, and notice you can also put default points. I'm gonna put 3, but you don't have to do that at this stage if you don't want to, because there is another stage where you can put in these point values. So this is a basic how to make a pool. Okay, so once you have one pool made, it's really easy to make other pools. All you have to do is go back to your pools, and you can click on this gray arrow on either of your pools and go to copy, and it'll make a copy of your pool. And then what you can do is edit and change the name. So notice that before, when I was making the first intro pool, I just called this quiz 1. But really, for every quiz or test that you're building, you'll need several pools, right? Depending on how many numbers of questions you want to ask, right? If you want to ask 5 questions and a question from each pool, that means you need 5 pools. So you can designate them A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., whatever you prefer. So I like going with alphabet just because you don't need a description or instructions for these pools at all. Okay, so I've made a copy, so now I want to edit it just like normal. So this tends to be faster than just making it from scratch. Okay, so I can say, what year is it? Right, and then continue with my questions. Okay, and then put in my answers. One other last thing I wanted to show you was that you can put in different questions. What's recommended for quizzes where where Blackboard auto grades for you is multiple choice, true and false, or ordering. Okay, so other types of question types can work, but sometimes they require double checking. So at least in the chemistry department, we are opting for multiple choice, true and false, and sometimes ordering, because ordering has a distinct order, and so Blackboard can tell you if you're right or wrong. So I'm going to just show you what a true and false looks like. It's pretty similar. So just write, and assign whether true or false, and then submit. So that's how you do a true or false. If you want to delete a question, you can just highlight it and press delete. Again, you can assign points, and if you copy, any question that you copied will have those default points in. So now I think we have enough questions to make a test. So what we want to do is now, if you go to pools, we see that we have 3 pools, and that's enough for a quiz. Usually, at least in the chemistry department, we want at least 4 to 5 pools for our quizzes. So you want to make at least a few different versions of the question, usually 2 to 4 different types of questions of the same caliber for each pool, and then you want at least 4 or 5 pools that touch on a different subject or topic. Okay, so then we want to go to test surveys and pools, which is again in our course tools. And then once you have your pools, then you can make a test. So we want to build a test. And then this, again, we're going to call lab quiz number 1. And we don't need these other designations, right? Because that was just for pools. For our test or a quiz, there are no quizzes in Blackboard, so you can just make a test and call it a quiz. Then here you can write a description, so this is what the student will see. You have, such as you have 15 minutes to, okay. You can give them instructions if necessary. Usually, instructions have been provided on the syllabus, but, this is optional. So then you want to press submit. Then when you want to use your pools, you go to reuse question. You want to, let me differentiate between these two. Create a question set uses pools. Create a random block also uses pool, but it randomly selects questions from a pool. So the way that we do that is we can click here and we click multiple choice because that's the kind of question. Okay, or you can click true and false because we also have that, but it's only going to show up for quiz A. Okay, so then I want to press submit. Okay, and this is where I want to click, okay, if I have a pool of 4 questions and I want 2, you can change this to 2. But since I only have 2 questions entirely in my pool, I'm just going to click 1 because that's how many I want. Okay, and then points per question, we can change that to however many you want. If you go to question settings before you even start importing your pools, this is where you can specify the default point value and say it's 3 or 2 or 5, however many you want. So use the default points when finding and adding questions. Okay, so far I've imported 1 pool. Then I want to do this again, create random block. Again, I can go to B, and go to multiple choice and true, false, press submit. Okay, and now when my pool imports, I know that it automatically makes it 3 points. I don't have to change anything, and it automatically makes it 1 point. If you want to see your pool again, you can see all the answers and questions. You can double check that your answers are correct. Okay. And then lastly, I'm going to create 1 more pool. And this is C. And again, I'm going to click all my question types. Or you can use all pool questions. That also works. Press submit. Okay. So I have 3 pools. I want to pick 1 from each pool. And I know that that's true because my points total 9. And I also see my A, B, and C. In the case where you have 4 or 5 questions, you should see up to D and E. So there's a few different ways that you can triple check that you're on the right track. Your point value should add up to 15 if you want 5 questions. Your points will equal however many points they are for the pool. And then we're almost ready to go. So this is where we've put all of our pools into a test canvas. Okay, and then notice that it says, for deployed, it says no. So the last thing we want to do is actually deploy the test. We've spent so much time just making the pools, making the test from the pools, and now we need to deploy it. The way we do that is you want to go to your course area wherever you want that quiz to show up. So if you're teaching a lab and you want it to show up under a specific lab, you go to your lab section, then that folder where it's tied to a specific experiment. And so once you're in that folder, then what you can do is you can click on assessment and test will pop up. So you want to click on test, and then you want to add a test, and your pool's quiz should show up there. Okay, so you can add existing, and then this is your test option. This is where you can show the test description, instructions, etc. You want to make available to students. You can send an announcement or not. Usually you don't need to do that. Students can see that things are due. For a test it might be good, but not for quizzes, because then they'll receive lots and lots of announcements. Usually not multiple attempts, right? Because again, what happens with multiple attempts, since you're using pools, is that they're going to just get a randomly generated set of questions. So even if they get kicked out for some reason, if they have multiple attempts, they're going to get a different set. Forced completion is an option you can pick. That means that the test must be completed in one sitting. This is good to prevent students from going over time. Okay. And then you also want to set a timer, and usually, at least in the chemistry department, we give 15 minutes to complete a 4 or 5 question quiz. And then you can set your displays. You don't have to do this. Some people do just to keep it clean, but if you have different folders for quizzes, you can keep it until whenever. And then you want to set a due date specifically for, a specific date. For the chemistry department, Thursday and Fridays are at midnight are going to be our deadlines for specific lab quizzes, for example. You don't want to allow students to start the test if the due date has passed. Okay, so we just click that as well. You want to include this in the grade center because Blackboard will auto-grade this for you. And usually what you want to do is you want students to know the results of their quiz. They should know. But this should come after the due date. Okay, so after due date, they can have score per question. You can show them all answers correct submitted. Usually just the score per question is good. Okay, or you can also show them correct. Okay, and then usually we also, since it's a short quiz, we present it all at once. Even for exams, that might be helpful so students can see everything that's available. And then this is where you can randomize questions. So the pool randomizes the pick, right? So if you have 4 different colors in a pool, it'll pick one color, right? And then randomizing questions will change the order of those questions from your pool. So you're not going to have pool A, pool B, pool C, pool D in that order. It's going to randomize it. And for a quiz, that's fine because you're not covering a ton of material, so randomizing the questions is totally fair for students. Okay, so those are the settings you want to use for the quiz, and then you're done. And now students will see that there's a quiz when they enter this site. Okay, they'll see the quiz, they'll see the instructions for the quiz, and then they'll be able to take the quiz. Okay, and so this is what they see. And notice they get 3 different questions, and they're from a pool. We just randomly submit, save and submit. Okay. Then they'll know they submitted. It tells you how long they took to submit, and then they can view the results after it's due. Okay. So that is how you make quizzes and tests using pools. I think it's great because once you do a course online, you can reuse your pools again for subsequent semesters, and it's a really great assessment tool because you can see how students are performing based on questions and assessment via Blackboard. All right, thanks for joining me.